Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining our diagnostic training session today. Now, if you have any questions throughout the session, if you're watching us on Zoom, just look on the top or the bottom of your screen. You should see some Zoom controls there. Click on the Q&A box. It'll open up a new window. You can type that in, hit submit, and I'll get to the questions at the end of the program. If you're watching us live on YouTube, you can use the live chat function that is either next to or below your video, depending on what device you're watching it on. You can just type in your question there, and once again, I'll get to those at the end of the presentation. My name is Jason Gabrenas. I'm one of Snap-on's national diagnostic technical trainers. Been with the training department the last 7 years and traveling around North America, trying to help techs and shop owners get the most out of their diagnostic equipment. Before that, it was a couple years as a diagnostic sales rep with Snap-on. So I had 30 different Snap-on franchisees I worked with, as well as the shops that they serviced in order to help everyone get the most out of their diagnostic needs. Before that, it was 8 years at Subaru. So I was a dealership technician at a Subaru dealership. And over time, I guess I just ended up becoming the default diagnostic guy in the shop, right? So I had the drivability problems, the intermittent issues, the weird wiring problems always seemed to end up in my bay. And that's really where I cut my diagnostic teeth, was trying to figure out those strange problems that would always come across. So that's really where I cut my diagnostic teeth. Before that, a bunch of other miscellaneous wrenching jobs. Been about 25 years under hood experience for me. So our topic today is code-based diagnostic workflow. Now, this is part one of a two-part series. Next week will be part two. So we're going to take you through a complete, repeatable diagnostic workflow, all starting with a code. So what we want to do is, when we're working on a vehicle, pretty much just about anything we want to do on a vehicle, but especially when it comes to diagnosis, we want to have a clear, repeatable workflow. So that way it works like a checklist, right? So I can make sure I don't miss anything or miss any steps along the way, which could lead to a misdiagnosis. So we want to walk through. So for this course, we're going to walk through the complete process all the way. First thing we want to do is we'll bring the customer in, right? Customer comes in, they let you know what their complaint is, and then you write them up. And then, well, if it's an engine light or a drivability problem, right, we probably want to do a pre-scan. We'll break out the scan tool, and that's where we begin here with a pre-scan. We want to check all modules on the vehicle for codes. Now, why do we need to do that? Well, not every module on a vehicle has a light associated with it. So there could be codes in multiple other modules that are affecting other vehicle systems, and you might not know because there won't be any light on the dash or anything like that. So we want to make sure we do that full pre-scan, scan all the systems, and check for codes. With that pre-scan, we also generate a report that we can share with our customers as well. And we'll talk more about that as we go through. Then we get to the diagnosis portion. And in the diagnosis portion, that could really have its own subset workflow in there as well, right? I might have other steps that I need to follow when I walk through a diagnosis in order to determine what is the problem with this vehicle, right? So that's our diagnosis section. And I think we spend an awful lot of time in there as well on our diagnosis of the vehicle. Next, we go to repair. Once we have diagnosed what the problem is and verified what the problem is a good idea, then we go to the repair. Do I need to replace the component itself? Do I need to repair a component? Do I need to fix a wiring harness? It could be a host of different things, but we want to go to that repair problem and actually fix it. Then once the repair is complete, before we do anything else, we want to also check and see, are there any resets, relearns, calibrations needed for this job that I just performed? Because oftentimes nowadays, many components on a vehicle need some sort of a reset, relearn. I replace a throttle body on a car, I need to do a throttle body reset. I replace a fuel injector on multiple different vehicles. They need, you need to type in a code. You need to recode the injector to the vehicle. Another one that always springs to mind is 06 and newer GM vehicles. Replace an oxygen sensor. You need to reset the heater circuit on that oxygen sensor. Otherwise, the computer will be sending too much amperage to the heater circuit, and you could blow out that new sensor if you don't reset it after you're done with that. So a whole host of different things that we might need to do on a vehicle. So you want to definitely go in there and check and see, are there any of these resets, relearns, calibrations that apply to this problem? Then once we're done there, we can clear the codes and then take it on a nice drive cycle road test to make sure that we don't have any of those codes come back. None of those issues that we were trying to solve come back. And then after that, the final step before we hand it off to the customers, we'll want to verify the operation. We want to verify that post scan, use that post scan to verify there are no codes left over, and also that all the readiness monitors are set as well. If all the readiness monitors are set and we have no codes, well, then the vehicle's in better shape than it did when it came in. So for the purpose of this section, this part 1, we are going to focus on the diagnosis portion. All right, so as I said, that even has its own workflow in and of itself. So after we find a code, if we find a code, we want to determine then an action plan. Like I said, another maybe workflow. So we want to gather information. And I think we've noticed over the last few years, more often than not in your diagnosis, you're spending more time finding information, looking up information, gathering information than it actually takes to do the full diagnosis, right? Because once I figure out what I need to do, the test might not take all that long, but figuring out what the steps that lead to it, well, that might take a little while. Things like TSBs. There can be hundreds or even thousands of TSBs on a vehicle. But I think you'll agree, if you use TSBs in your workflow already, if you check there, some of that information might be the fix for the vehicle, and it could save you a ton of time. Then we probably need real-world info. If the TSB doesn't do it for us right away anyways, we can go look at our OEM info. I need to know torque specs. I need to know disassembly procedures. I need to know flow charts. I need to find wiring diagrams. I need a component locator. All that information needs to be gathered. How about real-world repair info? What have other technicians done in this same situation, right? Based on billions of repair orders in our case, that might be a good thing to have. Data stream, right? What is the computer trying to tell me? Because remember, the data stream off a computer is going to be the computer's interpretation of what it's seeing based on its inputs. Then we get the functional tests, right? You need to turn things on and off perhaps in the testing phase. So if it's a solenoid or switch or a motor, I might be able to turn it on and off or move a window up and down or whatever I might need to do using functional tests. Then, depending on how it does with the functional tests, I suppose, we can go into the component test, right? Check for voltages, check resistance, check for whatever we might need to test for, a signature, a digital signature. Test the component in order to verify that the component has failed. Just because we suspect the component is the problem doesn't always mean it's a problem, right? So if we're testing the part itself directly, and everything else checks out okay and the part fails, then we can be a lot more confident when it comes time to order that new part, right? So that's what we're going to cover today, gathering the information through the actual testing and verification of the failure. All right, so let me switch over to my Zeus. Don't see any questions so far. Like I said, if you're watching on Zoom, you can put them in the Q&A panel. And if you're watching live on YouTube, you can always use the live chat to ask any questions as well. I'll definitely get to answer them at the end. If you're watching this after the fact on YouTube, after it was live, then the live chat, so it's not available at that point. So first off, we need to load our vehicle, right? So the customer comes in and we need to identify the vehicle. We need to identify the customer. So I have a shop management system here. We'll pull them in. We'll do a new repair order here, and I'll pull up Joe Johnson, founder of Snap-on. Always a good choice. And then Joe owns a 2016 Chevy Tahoe. So we need to work on that today. So I'll get into my order. And we need to figure out what could the problem be. So let's see. Let's look through this list of symptoms. And let's say it's a surge or a chuggle. I thought chuggle gives me a chuckle, right? Surge or a chuggle. It's chugging right along, right? So we'll add that diagnosis to our repair order as well. So now I have a repair order started for Mr. Johnson. And now I can say, well, I have a drivability problem with this vehicle. So next thing, scan it, see what the issue is. All right, so we'll go into scanner, break out my scan tool and go into scanner. Going to make sure that my key is on and my engine is off. I'm going to pause here really quick because we don't talk about this enough, I don't think. And this will help your tool run a lot smoother if you have a Snap-on scan tool. We've been saying for 30 years, right? Make sure the key is off, then you plug it in, then you turn the key on. Well, it used to be the way we wanted to do it, but nowadays with instant ID function on the scan tool, we want to make sure the key is on first before we connect. because it tells the tool then that it's time to find a VIN, right? It's an instant ID. That's how it works. The tool, as soon as it sees power, goes in and tries to find a VIN inside the module. Now, if the key is off on the vehicle when I connect, the tool's still going to see power, right? Because it should have constant power down pin 16, but the module will be off because the key is off, so that won't be able to find a VIN, and it'll take longer in the ID process. We want to make sure the key is on first, then connect the tool. So I'll hit continue there. And that applies to any of our tools as well, wireless or wired. I'm going to go through and identify my vehicle. Since we don't have a vehicle in front of us, we can't really do that instant ID or auto ID. So I'm just going to go into my demo vehicle here, the 2016 Chevy Tahoe. Go in, and this is fairly new. This is a recent update that has been made. So we added this screen back in the spring in 20.2 update. And what that'll do is it'll show you the VIN. It'll show the VIN used in the ID process. So it's year, make, model. So we just have year, make, model there. If it's instant ID or auto ID, it will automatically populate the full 17-digit VIN. I can also manually type in the VIN as well. New with 20.4, which would be the fall update, on vehicles that it's supported, we can pull the odometer reading off of the computer as well, right? So in this case, 36,361 miles. Depending on the brand, depending on manufacturer support for this, we do support that function if the manufacturer supports it. Also, a good place to enter your license plate number. I know that license plate said Snappy on there, so we can go in and add the license plate. That just makes it easier to search, recall later on in the process. You know, if I want to find this vehicle 3 months, 3 years from now, they come back for something else, I can just pull up and add to that vehicle record. All right, once we've confirmed all the information, we can hit OK. It's going to tell me it's in demo mode. Don't hook up to a vehicle. And that loads us onto our main page for the scan tool. So first thing we said we wanted to do is we want to do a pre-scan, right? So we'll go up to code scan here on the top, and then we will do a pre-scan. This just marks our report that we're going to generate here, whether it's a pre or post scan. It's going to go through, scan all the modules on the vehicle, and report back to me. Now we see the screen just turned gray there. That indicates that the tool has saved the report. It saves a copy both to the tool on the vehicle record, and it also uploads it to the Snap-on Cloud for free as well. We'll talk about that in a second. So you can see I have 2 engine codes. I can scroll down, see all the different various modules on the vehicle that we checked. Also checks the readiness monitors down here at the bottom as well. So as I said, it saved the report. Let's talk about that report. Where did it go? First thing we want to do is if it's a Windows-based tool, we can access it right from the bottom here. If it's a non-Windows-based tool, it saves it to the vehicle history. But if I go right here, this is my vehicle record. You can see it lists my vehicle, VIN, mileage. If I put in a license plate number, that's there too. And then I have an automatic attachment here, my vehicle system report. So we'll click on that. And there's my pre-scan. Shows me codes, systems with codes, and then systems without codes down here on the bottom. So it gives us a complete report that we can then share with the customer. Close out of that. The other thing that it does is, remember how I said it also uploads for free to Snap-on Cloud service as well. So if I go to the home screen, I have a built-in access to Snap-on Cloud on a Windows-based tool. On any other tool or any other device that you want to use it on, as long as you have access to a web browser, you can actually log in here, and as long as it's set up, it'll link all of those things together. So let me go in here and log in. It's going to load my reports, and there are my reports. Let's use a few of them that I did earlier tonight. Let's see, what's the latest one? This one right here, right? That's early. This is later on the left. So that's a couple minutes ago, Eastern time. And there's my vehicle system report I just generated. So I can click on that. First thing we notice is it gives us some auto-generated search terms. So it's going to be year, make, model, any codes found, whether it's a pre or post scan, and what kind of file it is. So is it a system report? Is it a screenshot? That sort of thing. I also like to put in the license plate just so I can search those records later on too. So, license plate is going to be connected to 1, maybe 2 vehicles over, a course of a few years anyways. I find it a good practice to just add that to it. So that way it's a search term for later. If I go up to the top, I can click where it says vehicle system report. It will load the report for me. Opens up another browser window. And then we see it looks exactly like it did stored on the tool because it just uploads it as a PDF. Date and timestamp, etc. Also on this screen and on the main screen as well, we have this link icon. If I click on the link, it's going to generate a shareable link that I can use. And depending on what kind of device I have it on, it gives me a few options. So the first one's grayed out. We'll talk about that last. Second one is send via email. So if I'm running this on a machine, like I said, it works in any web browser. So if this is on a machine with a built-in email client, such as Outlook or Windows built-in email, that sort of thing, it'll open my default email client. It'll compose a new email, paste the link in there for me, and then I can just hit plug in whoever I need to send it to, and it'll send. Also, copy to clipboard. We'll copy it to the tool, whatever I'm using, phone, tablet, laptop, desktop, as I said, and then I can paste it wherever I need to use. So if I'm using, say, webmail, or maybe I want to paste it in my shop management system, which I'm going to do here in a second, I can paste it in as a note, right? And then send via SMS. As we said, that's grayed out. Reason it's grayed out is because I'm not watching this or I don't have this open on my phone. If I had it open on my phone, it would light up. And then if I click on that, it opens the default messaging service. And then I can text this to a customer as well. So as I said, I want to put this in my shop manager. So I'm going to copy it to the clipboard there. And then I will just open my shop management. And we can see here's my repair order I started earlier. I have a room for notes. I'm just going to paste that in there. And now I have the repair order and the pre-scan linked to that. So I could even maybe say pre-scan, right? Oops, I have caps on. There we go. So there's my pre-scan available right there. I can save it. And now I have it attached as a line item on my repair order, and I can reference it later. Okay, so there's my report. Let's say we shared it with the customer, the customer said, okay, yeah, sure, I'll authorize an hour for diagnostic fee or what have you. So we can go look over here. Engine misfire detected and a PO 446. Their main complaint was the surge or chuggle, as they call it. So PO 300, that's a misfire. That's a good candidate to start. As I said, I'm running this on a Zeus. So Zeus, the Apollos, and the Triton all have intelligent diagnostics on them. So in diagnostics, if you're not aware what this is, what it does for us is it gathers the information we need just for the code, just for the vehicle, gets rid of all the other stuff that we don't need on the vehicle, and just filters it down based on the code and the vehicle. It's based on over 1.3 billion repair orders, 120 billion plus diagnostic events for our data. So it filters it down based on real world vehicles, real world situations. The other thing it gives us is a repeatable workflow. If I go through this page and go top to bottom, left to right, and just touch on everything that's in here, I will go through a repeatable diagnostic workflow because the information categories stay the same. Like TSBs is always there. The repair graph is always here, etc. But the data changes based on what the code is, right? So based on the 2016 Tahoe with a P0300, there are 2 TSBs that relate to that. How many TSBs could there be on this vehicle? There could be hundreds, maybe even 1,000 different TSBs on this vehicle. In this case, we have 2. So let's take a look at that first, because as we said earlier, always good to check those bulletins first because the manufacturer could have a solution for us. So first one here says engine misfire may be due to loose spark plug wires. Cool. So let's take a look. Tells us what year, make, model it applies to up here. And then if we come down a little bit further, it actually gives us a picture. So a loose spark plug wire could very well cause a misfire. I agree. But in this case, the vehicles in question are Vortec V8s, and those are coil near plug ignition systems. So there's an individual coil for each cylinder, and then a short plug wire that goes between the coil and plug. On the coil end, there are these C-clips that hold the wire tightly to the terminal or the post on the coil. On occasion, those could pop off. On occasion, I suppose they could not even be installed in the first place. If it's an aftermarket set of plug wires, something like that, maybe the customer actually went through and did their own tune-up perhaps, and now it's running worse and they bring it to you. That could be. But let's say in this hypothetical situation with Joe Johnson's 2016 Chevy Tahoe, we pulled a couple plug wires off and we looked and said, oh, wow, there are no clips there. Now, if you hadn't read this bulletin and seen this picture, you may not be aware that that's even a thing that could happen. I know I wasn't until I first read this. I just thought, well, that looks like a lot of other plug wires I've seen in my life, right? Not knowing that the clip is necessarily there. So in this case, this TSB really helped us, right? Because let's say that was the problem, and we replaced the wires with proper wires, OE wires or whatever, and good to go. So in that case, we'll road test it, double check it, solved that one problem. But remember, we also had two codes in here, right? We had a 446 code. So let's switch over. We just have this drop-down menu up here that switches between codes. Go to the 446, and we'll see how the information refreshes. First things, TSBs, once again, looks like I have a green circle with a check mark, though, so that means no TSBs related to the problem. Top to bottom, left to right, next thing over is my graph. Now, most of our tools have these repair graphs on there at this point. When you get a code, you get a graph associated with it. And that's based on over 1.3 billion repair orders, like I said, checked for what the problem is. On the intelligent diagnostic tools, they're called top repairs graphs. On the non-intelligent diagnostic tools, it's called the commonly replaced parts graph. Same data set, but it's sorted differently and filtered differently depending on the type of tool. On a top repairs graph on an intelligent diagnostic tool, we have this first word right here. Replaced, cleaned, could be adjusted, etc. So in this case, it breaks out this vent solenoid. I see I have a vent solenoid there for 15, and I have a vent solenoid up there for 230. On a commonly replaced parts graph on a non-intelligent diagnostic tool, that would say 245 canister vent solenoids. It wouldn't say what was done, or it wouldn't say it was replaced. It wouldn't say cleaned. It would just say canister vent solenoid, and then you'd have to go from there. So it gives you a different way of filtering the data that one step further, which helps you get in closer to what the fix might actually be. It's also mileage based. So we want to look and see where's the mileage on the vehicle, and then where does that fall on this graph. So if we look, say this vehicle had 75,000 miles. That's right about here, between 50 and 100, right? So in this case, the number one repair is replace the vent solenoid, and then number two is the canister. We go over here to about 36,000 miles, which is probably right around in this range. Looks like we're pretty much tied between the top two. And then so on and so forth, depending on where you go. If you had fewer miles than that, then the canister itself is a higher replacement. Right, so it just depends on where we are on the mileage. We can base our vehicle repair strategy off of that. All right, I'm not telling you just replace the number one thing, but it gives us a really good idea where to go, where to look, where to test. All right, so let's go down. We figured that out. No TSBs. Looks like maybe that canister vent solenoid is a problem, and judging by the code, that could be it. Let's see what the data has to say next. We'll go to the next thing, which is smart data. What smart data does is how many PIDs can there be on a PCM on a vehicle? Could be hundreds there as well, 400, 500, 600 PIDs in some cases. So what it does is it filters down the PID list down to just the PIDs that pertain to this code on this car. And then it will, based on real world data once again, set these flags. Notice how it's red. If you were looking earlier, you would have noticed it was a white flag with a blue outline. The white flag with the blue outline indicates that PID is being watched and monitored based on known good, and high and minimum and maximum values. All right, so high and low. If it ever goes outside of those values, it'll turn the flag red. It'll turn the PID name red. And we can also monitor the data. If the data is red, it's out of spec. If it's blue, then it can go back into spec, but the flag stays red. So right here, you see how it went blue. That means it went back into spec. I could open the graph. I can see it opens, puts a red line there. I can go on other graphs as well, open those up, and I can see there's a gray line at the same spot on all these PIDs. The PIDs are constantly recording as well, whether they're on screen or not. All right, so let's close out of this one and close out of this one. So we see I have a flag on my fuel tank pressure sensor. It's pulling excessive vacuum when it cycles. This is just demo data, so it's going to repeat. But it's pulling excessive vacuum, goes down to like -3 inches of water column. But we also notice the computer says the vent solenoid valve is venting. So if everything's working the way it should, we should not be pulling excessive vacuum here because the vent valve basically opens the fuel tank to the outside world. So my fuel tank pressure sensor should not be reading vacuum in this case if it says that my vent solenoid valve is open. But once again, that is a command PID, right? It's commanding it to vent, which means it's sending the command, but it doesn't mean that it's necessarily working. right? So I see I have high vacuum. That indicates that my vent valve is not open. And my purge valve is open and it's drawing a vacuum. All right, so if I exit out of this, let's back up and see what's next. So that gives me a good indicator there. There could be a problem. Next thing down, functional tests and resets. Click on that. And once again, it filters the tests. How many functional tests and output controls can there be on a vehicle? Just one module could be hundreds there as well. So it looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? No, 4. 4 on this vehicle, right? So evap vent solenoid valve right here. Click on that. It's going to bring us into the functional test itself, where I can set it to venting or not venting, so open or closed. I also have the data to go along with it. Notice how much more data we have here because it is not a filtered list. This is the full list of evap data on this vehicle. So we can also see how the smart data filtered it down so it all fit on half a screen, really. So in this case, we can monitor the data if we wish to do so while we're doing the functional test. We can also use our 5 senses while we do this functional test as well. We can go back to wherever the solenoid is on the vehicle, click venting, click not venting, since we are wirelessly connected up under the dash there, so we can walk around. And does it click? Put my hand on it. Does it click? Listen to it. Does it click? All right, we can tell that just by doing this functional test. Now, where is this on this vehicle? Hard to tell if you haven't worked on one of these. If you have worked on them, then you might know, but maybe you don't. So we're going to skip down here a little bit because with the Windows-based tools as well, we have a quick link to repair information. Now, you could also open the repair information in a browser window if you didn't have one of these tools. But the advantage with this is it passes the login information through if you have Shopkey or Mitchell, passes the login information through, passes the vehicle information through. You might have to tell it like a model or a submodel. And then it passes through the code. Now we see I have results. On the left-hand side, I have my OE only search results. On the right-hand side, I have what we call related results, which are going to be OE plus real-world information integrated together. So in this case, I think it is the vent valve is likely. So we're going to go right here. And then we see my category cards. So this system, Shopkey or Mitchell, works very similarly to how that intelligent diagnostics system works. It takes a search term, a code, or what have you. You can also do symptoms in this case, or parts. But in this case with a code, filters it down, all the information on the vehicle just to pertaining to the P0446. So where is it? Let's go to component information or component location and find out. All right, so it says it's going to give me a breakdown here. So it's going to be number 10 on my breakdown. So if I go down here, there's my chassis. Open that up. Zoom in a little bit. Number 10. Looks like it's in the back there. And kind of behind the axle there on the back rear frame. Looks like it's maybe above the spare tire. All right, so maybe I might have to drop the spare tire to get to it. All right, there's my locator. Now, might want to look at some wiring diagrams while I'm in here too. So let's pull up the wiring diagram. All right, so here's my wiring diagram. And you'll notice it drops me off on, there's 8 panels of wiring diagram for the engine performance circuit. Drop me off on panel 1. You might think that it's going to drop you off on page 1 regardless, but really what it does, what the system has done for us is it drops us off on the panel where the component we're looking for lives. So if I click on that, you'll see what I mean. It's going to pull up and you'll notice my wires are pre-highlighted here. And that is my evap vent solenoid right there. Now, if I look on the left, I have this eyeball. I can click that. That dims the other wires and leaves just my highlighted wires highlighted. All right, so I could pull in a little closer if I wanted to, but it looks like we get a signal wire there. That's the control wire. And then where's this wire go? It goes off the screen. So let's go across. Due to the way the wiring diagrams are set up, it leaves the highlight on the wire all the way across multiple panels. And it also leaves the wires dim if I dim them. So it goes back and it looks like it goes to the fuse box. All right, there's my underhood fuse block right there. And it looks like a power supply says hot at all times attached to that. It's 15 amp fuse. Now, where is this underhood fuse box? I'm already in the wiring diagram. So instead of doing a new search for the fuse box, I click on this blue link. And it will open, if I click on it correctly, there we go. It'll open a new search results for me. So if I wanted to find location of this underhood fuse box I clicked on, I click on component location, and then it'll give me a view of where that is on the vehicle as well, and never having to leave the wiring diagram from here. All right, looks like my internet is slow today, but that would pull up and fall up in there. I'm not gonna. Oh, there we go. Took me a minute. All right, so there we go, and there's my fuse boxes are in there. So there's my locators for all of my different fuse boxes. Okay, that was a lot of information, I guess. Return. That's why. Okay. So there's my locator there. So I can close out of that, and then I can go back. So I looked at my wiring diagram. I know where my component's located. I can do my functional test. I want to do a component test on it as well. Right. So let me go back to my intelligent diagnostics. Go up here. In order to do a component test on it, I want to be able to change my on and off, venting and not venting. So I want to be able to do a functional test and do guided component testing on the same screen. We have a Windows-based tool. We can do that too. If you're here at the very beginning, you saw a little video on that. But if I go to vent solenoid valve here, back to my functional test, and go in here, there it is on the screen. We'll leave this screen. Now I could go to my intelligent diagnostics, but I can't do screen and screen if I do that. So I'm going to go to my home screen and go into guided component tests, the straight guided component test module. Load my vehicle. Go into my engine system, because that's where my evap stuff is, evap system, and then my vent solenoid. All right, so I could do a DC voltage test or a resistance test in this case. I want to do a voltage test. Okay. So it's going to tell me how to hook up. So vent control is my yellow. So my yellow goes to vent control, and my black goes to known good ground. So it's key on engine running. The PCM de-energizes the vent solenoid to allow purge. So that means it opens. Vent solenoid is normally open. I should see 12 volts on both sides. When de-energized, during the monitor, the PCM energizes the solenoid, which would be closed, allowing vacuum and pressure to build in the fuel tank. I should see 1/10 of a volt or less on the control side when it's closed. Okay. Hit view meter, and it's going to automatically set the voltage where it needs to be, automatically sets the time where it needs to be. Also picks the appropriate meter. So do I need a lab scope for this? Do I need a graphing meter? Do I need a digital meter? It pulls the appropriate meter out for me and sets it up on the screen here. So it looks like in this case, let's say we have it set to, I need to set it so I can monitor it and do a functional test as well. Up on the top of the screen is meter, makes it full screen. Meter one more time, makes it a window. I can then move it around to do whatever I need to do. Go to the home screen, back to the scanner module, because that's where my intelligent diagnostics lives. And then I see my information. Pull up my Windows taskbar, find my scope viewer right there. There it is. Snap it to the right. Snap it to the left. Now I have my guided component test connected at the component at the rear of the vehicle, while also being able to set my controls to venting or not venting. Now remember what it says. Normally venting, it should just be 12 volts. Not venting, it should be 1/10 of a volt or less, so ground. No matter what I do, let's say it doesn't click. Let's say no voltage changes. So we're assuming that it's sending the signal because we're seeing ground there. We don't see any shorts or opens. But I'm also not seeing any voltage. So the next thing I would do on my control side is it's not changing. So is the voltage making it through the solenoid? So I'll unplug from that side, plug it into the other side, and see if I get voltage. So let's say in this case, I hooked up to the other side of the solenoid, the supply side that goes to the fuse box, and I see 12 volts. And then I switch back to the other side, and it's no volts. 12 volts, no volts. Go back and forth, right? Side to side. Go over there, disconnect. Go over there, nothing. Go over there, nothing. So that indicates that the signal, it's getting power in, but the power is not going out. No matter where I send it, it's not making it out. So that indicates to me that the power is not making it all the way through that solenoid, and we have some sort of an open situation where that voltage is not getting through. Because we should see voltage on both sides when it is set to open, right? So in that case, I have just tested my component, and I've tested my component as bad. All right, I have nothing going on here. It is getting voltage supply, but it's not making it through. So that indicates that my solenoid is bad. And that's where we're going to leave it for this week, that the solenoid is bad. And we verified that. So next week, we're going to check how we would, put a new part in and then double check, verify that the new component's okay. And then also go through and check for any resets, relearns, and that sort of thing after the fact. So that's what we're talking about next week, right? So code-based workflow part 2. So this is where I'm going to leave you at today. So we've gone through and we've diagnosed the issue. We verified the problem using component testing. And now we are going to go through next week and we are going to perform the actual repair. All right, so join me, same time, same place. If you're on Zoom, it's at snapon.com/NOT is a good place to go. And then we can also, if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you hit subscribe, hit the notification bell. That way you'll know next time we do a live stream as well. And you can check us out at that 8 p.m. Eastern session as well. So let me get to questions. While I do that, let me put this slide up here as well. It's my buddy Al there. And he does other classes for us. So I do these classes on Tuesday and Wednesday afternoon. Al does like a basic training intro class to your tool. Maybe you want to go through and get a refresher course. Maybe you just got a tool. Either way it works. Walking through setting up your Wi-Fi, setting up your free Snap-on Cloud account that we talked about, where we can share those reports with our customers as well. He walks you through that. So even if you just stay for that, that's worth it. So Mondays is Apollo D9, Wednesdays is Zeus, and Thursdays is Triton. Not this week because it's Thanksgiving, but other Thursdays it is Triton D8. 5 p.m. and 8 p.m. Central Time for any of them. Just pick your tool. If you go to snapon.com/NOT, snapon.com/NOT, and that will link you to any of his trainings towards the bottom of the screen. And then the link to register for my training is at the top of the screen there. All right, so let's see. Let me get the questions. I have one question on Zoom. We'll get to that first. Hey, William, thanks a lot. Glad you enjoy the classes and you enjoy your holiday as well. And then let's go over to Mr. YouTube here. So Hussein, I hope I'm saying your name right, but I appreciate you showing up every week and checking out these classes. Definitely thank you for coming. And Practical Mechanic says Zeus also has a VIN scanner. If the entire VIN doesn't populate, you can also use the camera to grab the whole VIN. Yes, that was an update we made. I think that was in the spring as well, where you can actually go through and scan the VIN if it has a barcode on there. And also Practical Mechanic says, I do love the Snap-on Cloud feature. Have several scan tools and my thermal imager connected. Yes, definitely. You can link up multiple Snap-on tools with that. It tells you what tool it came from, which is nice. And then also that Thermal Imager Elite also uploads the Thermal Imager 3 separate images with that as well. And then Mr. the Winton 29 says Zeus is the best scanner. Thank you. I think so too. I could be a little biased on that though. But yeah, I definitely do love running through and showing everybody what it can do as far as out there. So with that, I don't see any other questions coming in. So I certainly appreciate everyone's time. And also make sure that you stay safe over the weekend here coming up. And with that, stay safe out there.